day, everyone. We are the team Porifera. And in this video, we will discuss about what is Phylum Porifera.
I am Catherine Clergy Alensob, and I'm going to discuss about the introduction of Phylum Porifera.
And I am Joanna Chris R. Armenia, and I will discuss to you about what are the different characteristics of Phylum Porifera.
And I am Mario P. Martician, and I'm going to discuss about the classification of Phylum Porifera.
So here's the objectives. The first one is to describe what is Phylum Porifera.
The second one is to know the different types of sponges.
And the last one is to gain knowledge about the classification and characteristics of Phylum Porifera.
So let's begin the discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Catherine Clergy Arensob, and this afternoon I'm going to discuss to you about the Phylum Porifera. Introduction of Phylum Porifera. Today we'll be able to describe what is Phylum Porifera and know the different types of sponges. So, by the way, what is Phylum Porifera? Anyone from the class? Do you have any idea? So, from the word porifera, meaning it refers to the pore-bearers or pore-bearing species. So, based on the embryological status, sponges are proved as animals and are classified into a separate phylum in animals. So, sponges, which is poriferans, are very simple animals that live permanently attached to a location in the water. They are sessile as adults. There are from 5,000 to 10,000 known species of sponges. Most sponges live in salt water. Only about 150 species live in fresh water. Sponges evolved over 500 million years ago. So, as you can see in the picture, this is called osculum, a large opening in a sponge through which water flows out of the sponge. And this is called epidermis. Um, it is the layer of cells that covers the outer surface of the sponge. And this one, it is called holdfast because it is rod-like tendrils that attach the sponge to rocks. Most sponges are also hermaphrodites, meaning an animal in which each adult can act as either the female or male in reproduction. So, some sponges can also go through asexual reproduction to produce clones when a piece of sponge breaks off and grows in another location. So, this type of asexual reproduction is called fragmentation. Why? Because a fragment of the sponge breaks off and eventually grows into a genetically identical sponge. Sponges are sessile animals. They spend their lives attached to rocks. Water enters the small pores of a sponge, travels through canals, and exits through large hole at the top of the sponge. So, poriferans don't have mouths. Instead, they have tiny pores in their outer walls through which water is drawn. So poriferans are pore-bearing first multicellular animals. The pores are known as ostia. So, ostia, ibig sabihin a series of tiny pores all over the body of a sponge that let water into the sponge. So, one of these is called ostrium. The poriferans have a spongy appearance and are therefore called sponges. They are attached to the substratum and do not move. They were initially regarded as plants due to their color, due to their green color and their symbiotic relationship with algae. So these are the examples of the sponges. The first one is Venus flower basket glass sponges. So spicules are sharp spikes made of calcium carbonate located in the mesohyl. Spicules form the skeleton of mini sponges. So spicules can be a form of defense for the sponges to deter or herd predators. And the second is a reed rope sponge. So a reed rope sponge, tube sponges are another type of tropical sponge. They have a tube shape and also come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. And the third is Aplycina fistularis, the yellow tube sponge. So the yellow tube sponge, also known as Aplycina fistularis. The yellow tube sponge has a large opening at the top of it and is attached at the bottom. So, if they are exposed to the atmosphere, they will turn purple and black and die. And the last one is the barrel sponge. The barrel sponge is another common type of tropical sponge. They grow to be at least 6 feet wide, making them one of the largest sponge species in their habitats. So, they are called barrel sponge because of the way they look. They are bow shaped and have very large openings, which is kanang osculum at the top of them. So, that's it for my part. Um, Miss Armenia and Miss Martitian will continue to discuss the classification and its characteristics.
So, a pleasant day for each and everyone. I am Joanna Cruz, Reda Armenia, and I will talk to you about the characteristics of Phylum Porifera. So, before I proceed, here are my um, team, which are composed of Miss Catherine Elinsop, or Kat, myself, Jo, and Miss Marielle. So, the first characteristic of Phylum Porifera is that they are generally marine aquatic organisms with a few freshwater species. Now, um, we all know that it is a bit confusing why they are some sponges that is adopted in marine aquatic environment, and why are there some freshwater nakatira. The difference between the two is that typically kasi freshwater habitats are less than 1% um, salt. So this includes ponds, lakes, rivers, and streams. On the other hand, ang marine life naman has to be adapted to living in a habitat with a high concentration of salt. This includes ocean and salty seas. Now, how does sponges survive in their aquatic environment? So, bacteria help sponges to survive in their aquatic environments, in which the bacteria present in microbiota of sponges produce chemical substances that act like a shield. So, ang nangyayari dyan is pinoprotektahan nitong bacteria na to yung mga sponges from predators, toxins, and pathogens. Okay, so ang tanong dyan is, why can sponges live in either freshwater or sa marine environment? So, sponges are simple organisms built by a colony of different specialized cells. So, Their skeleton types allow them to live in either hard or soft sediments. Their pores allow them to filter the water around them for food. So, here are some examples for the marine life, such as Spongia lacustris, Spongilidae, and giant feral sponge. The next one is the freshwater sponges is the Epidacia or Epidacia mowleri. So this is what it looks like. Now, so this Epidacia mowleri is commonly or mostly found in the National Capital Region or the NCR. So it is often green because of algae that lives in the structure of the sponge. And for this reason, maraming tao yung nami-mistake nila yung sponge for algae. But madali lang naman siya ma-differentiate ang sponge sa algae since ang sponges have a coarse texture while ang algae naman, I mean, ang ano 'di ba, ang sponge are not slimy like unlike sa algae. Next is we have they are either radially symmetrical or asymmetrical. So sponges. So why the sponges are symmetrical and asymmetrical? It is due to that sponges are either of the two because they are extremely simple. Katulad nung nasabi ko kanina. So they live in the ocean and they cannot move on their own and have no complex organs or other features that higher order animals have. So sponges are one of only a few types of animals classified as having symmetry. So number 3. So its body shape can be cylindrical, vase-like, rounded, or sac-like. So the body of sponges takes the shape of a cylinder with a large central cavity we called sponge coel, occupying the inside of the cylinder so water can enter into the sponge coel from the numerous pores in the body wall, and water entering the sponge coel is extruded via a large common opening called the osculum. So, as what I've said, diba, ang type ng sponges is it takes the shape of cylindrical, vase-like, rounded, or sac-like. So, this is another example of ng sponge. So, this is the sponge coel. As you can see, dyan nagsisirculate yung mga water na nag-enter to the porocytes. Tapos, lalabas siya sa may osculum. So ang mesohyl it is a gelatinous matrix that is filled in the space between the external outermost layer called the pinacoderm and the internal layer called choanoderm. So, ang function ng mesohyl is it acts as a type of endoskeleton helping to maintain the tubular shape of sponges. Next is they are diploblastic animals with two layers, the outer dermal layer and the inner gastral layer. So there is a gelatinous non-cellular mesoglea skeleton between these layers. This contains many free amoeboid cells. So what is the outer dermal layer? So outer dermal layer or the pinacocytes. These cells are the skin cells of sponges. So ang pinacocytes, which are epithelial-like cells from the outermost layer of sponges, enclosing a jelly-like substance called mesohyl. Okay, so the function of pinacocytes is waters enter the sponges through the pores formed by these cells, which are the porocytes. So next is the inner layers of or endoderm. So the inner layers or endoderm of the sponges are composed of flagellated cells known as choanocytes or color cells that are the primary sources or area of absorption ng nutrients. So, ang choanocytes is actually responsible for a number of metabolic processes in sponges such as digestion, reproduction, and circulation. Okay, for additional information, so ang amoeboid cells is actually, or archaeocytes, often called amoebocytes, or amoeboid cells found in sponges. So the cytoplasm of these cells contains large amounts of RNA. So amoebocytes function includes regeneration and also transportation of food particles acquired at the choanocytes. Okay, next is number 5. So the body has many pores called the ostia and a single large opening called osculum at the top. So sa may, 'di ba, sa sa image or sa figure na pinakita ko kanina, ang ostia is like a pores na mostly talaga makikita talaga siya sa panlabas na mga sponges. Ito yung mga parang bilog-bilog-bilog. So that is what we call the ostia. So these are tiny pores for incoming water. While ang osculum naman is usually one large opening for outgoing water. So ang ostia are minuscule pores present on the body walls of sponges. So they are formed by porocytes, which are tube-shaped cells that function as valves to allow fluid exchange. So in some sponges, ostia are formed by porocytes, which is the single tube-shaped cells that acts as valve to regulate the flow of water into the sponge coel. Di ba kanina sinabi ko na, so ang porocytes is, it control the amount of water that enter pores into the sponge coel. Next is we have the sponge coel is the body cavity that is present. So ang sponge coel is the large inner cavity that water circulates through before siya makalabas sa osculum, which is yung pinakamalaking butas para lumabas yung mga water. Next is they have the characteristic canal system for the flow of water through the body. So also known as aquiferous system. So the canal system of sponges helps in food acquisition, respiratory gas exchange, and also in excretion. So sponges doesn't have like sense organs. So ang sense organs nila are absent. So they do not have nerves or they lack conventional muscles. One of the earliest evolving phyla. So number 9, there is an endoskeleton present with calcareous spicules or the calcium carbonate, or silcellus spicules or the silica, or sponging fibers, which is the protein. So calcareous spicules help larvae stay buoyant while in the plankton or reach the bottom at settlement to enhance reproduction success or catch prey. So, meaning to say, as long as a certain sponge stays buoyant, pwede siya like, mag-flow lang sa water until makahanap siya ng habitat niya. So, diba kanina sabi natin na ang mga sponges cannot move on their own, but there are some sponges that pwedeng makalipat-lipat ng habitat nila. But in the same environment lang din naman. So, yung iba, mga nakatira na sa pinaka-bottom ng ocean. So, sexes are not separate. So, most poriferans that reproduce by sexual means are hermaphroditic or thidic and produce eggs and sperms at different types. So, pag sinabi natin na hermaphroditic, so it possesses both male and female reproductive organ structures or tissue. So, they are both male and female at the same time. So, note that sponges can reproduce both sexually and asexually. So, it can reproduce sexually by forming gametes and asexually by the fragmentation processes by budding, and gemmule formation. And lastly, asexual reproduction is seen through budding fragmentation. Sexual reproduction is seen in certain species through gametic fusion. So, it is a two-step process involving membrane recognition and apposition through ligand receptor interactions and lipid mixing mediated by fusion proteins. So, a male and female gamete will merge together to form a new organism. So that would be all for my part. Miss Martishon will tackle the rest. So that would be all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Mariel P. Martishon and I'm going to discuss to you about the classification of Phylum Porifera. So there are three classification of Phylum Porifera. So first is the Calcarea. They are found in marine, shallow, and coastal water. Their skeleton is composed of calcareous specules made of calcium carbonate. The body organization is asconoid, cyconoid, or leuconoid. So, amo yung an example ng calcarea. So, ang calcarea are the only sponges that possess specules composed of calcium carbonate. Usually, luspad an iya color o possible na gamay an iya size less than 30 cm. This class of sponges lacks of spongin and their skeletons are composed of calcium carbonate. As a result, calcareous sponges are quite brittle to touch. Ini na sponges kay maglahi-lahi an iya shape from vase shape to individuals made of mesh-like thin tubes through to irregular masses. Usually makita siya sa mabaw na tubig, though one species has been found a depth of 400 meters. So the second one is Hexatinellida. Hexatinellida, they are found in marine and deep sea. The skeleton is made of 6 rayed siliceous specules. The body is cylindrical in shape and exhibit radial symmetry. The canal is cycon and leucon. So ini siya amo yung example ng Hexatinellida. Amo yung kuan ini siya glass sponges. These glass sponges in class Hexatinellida are animals commonly found in the deep ocean. Their tissues contain glass-like structures, particles, called specules that are made of silica. Some species ng glass sponges kay magproduce sila ng dako na specules that fuse together in beautiful patterns to form a glass house. A complex skeleton na usahay buo gihapon bisan ang sponges na mismo an mapatay. The skeleton of the glass sponge, together with various chemicals, provides defense against many predators. Karamihan sa kuan sa glass sponges kay mabuhi siya na yakapikit sa ibabaw ng mga gahi na mga objects og mukaon sila ng gagmay na bacteria that they filter from the surrounding water. An ila intricate skeleton kay makaprovide sa mga animals na nila kapuyan. So the last one is the Desmospongii. They are found in marine or fresh water. The canal system is a leuconoid type. The skeleton comprises spongin fibers, siliceous specules, which are monoaxon and triaxon. So, ang Desmospongii is the largest class in Phylum Porifera. So, ang Desmospongii kasi ang pinakadako sa class Phylum Porifera. One great example of Desmospongii is the brown tube sponge. Amo yon sa picture. Amo ini siya ang brown tube sponges. Their skeleton are made of specules that consist of fibers of the protein spongin, the mineral silica, or both. Tanan Desmospongii kay may leuconoid canal type. The spongin provides a matrix in which the specules are embedded. Ang Desmospongiae, maglahi-lahi ang iya size from small forms to very large. So that's all for the classification of Phylum Porifera. So thank you and God bless.